Glass towers rise in months. They shine, they win awards, and within a decade many of them begin to leak, corrode, or demand expensive repairs. Concrete parking garages built in the 1970s are already crumbling. Steel-reinforced slabs crack as hidden rebar rusts and expands. Entire office blocks are demolished before the loans used to finance them are fully repaid. Yet across Europe, cathedrals raised in the 1200s without engines, without structural steel, without computer models, are still standing. Not barely standing, not secretly reinforced with modern frames. Standing as they were designed to stand. 8 centuries of storms, wars, pollution, and neglect, and the core stone skeletons remain. We possess satellites, advanced chemistry, and predictive software. They had hand tools and geometry. So why do our buildings often fail within decades while theirs endure for centuries? Modern construction is optimized for speed. A commercial high-rise can be completed in under 3 years. A suburban housing development can appear in months. Prefabricated panels arrive by truck. Concrete is pumped into molds and reaches structural strength within days. Steel beams are craned into position according to digital models calculated to the millimeter. Efficiency is measured in labor hours saved and return on investment accelerated. Longevity is discussed, but rarely prioritized beyond a projected service life of 50 to 100 years. Many structures undergo major rehabilitation long before that. Reinforced concrete, the backbone of modern urban construction, contains embedded steel bars that inevitably corrode when moisture penetrates microscopic cracks. Rust expands, internal pressure builds, and concrete fractures from within. Repairs require invasive cutting, patching, sealing. Sometimes demolition is cheaper than restoration. Glass curtain walls depend on sealants that degrade under ultraviolet light and thermal cycling. Climate control systems run continuously because thin walls and lightweight assemblies cannot regulate temperature passively. Structure and environment are separated. The building relies on mechanical systems to compensate for what its materials cannot do alone. When one layer fails sealant, membrane, coating, the entire system becomes vulnerable. The paradox is uncomfortable. With more knowledge and more technology, we often produce buildings that demand constant intervention to survive. Medieval cathedral builders operated under different assumptions. Construction in the 12th and 13th centuries was slow by necessity. A cathedral could take decades, sometimes over a century, to complete. The master mason who laid the foundation would not see the final vault sealed. This altered incentives. The structure was not a short-term investment, but a generational obligation. If it failed, the failure would be visible for centuries. Materials were local because transportation was slow and costly. Timber was precious. Iron was expensive. Stone and lime were abundant in many regions, and labor was skilled through guild systems that preserved techniques across generations. Without access to modern adhesives, synthetic membranes, or steel reinforcement, builders had to work within the intrinsic properties of their materials. Stone is extraordinarily strong in compression and weak in tension. Lime mortar sets slowly, remaining slightly flexible and breathable. Timber expands and contracts with humidity. Every choice reflected a clear understanding of limits. They did not try to force materials to behave differently. They designed structures so that materials performed only in the ways they were naturally strong. At the foundation level, cathedral builders excavated until they reached stable soil or bedrock, then spread loads over wide areas using thick beds of rubble stone bonded with lime mortar. Unlike modern Portland cement, lime mortar hardens through carbonation, reacting slowly with carbon dioxide in the air. This slow process allows minor settlement without brittle cracking. If small fissures form, lime can partially self-heal as new calcite crystals develop. Foundations were not rigid plates resisting all movement. They were massive, tolerant systems distributing weight gradually into the earth. Above ground, walls were often several meters thick at the base. That thickness was not excess, it was multifunctional. The mass provided structural stability, thermal inertia, and moisture regulation simultaneously. Thick masonry absorbs heat during the day and releases it slowly at night, stabilizing interior temperatures. Lime mortar joints allow vapor to pass through, preventing trapped condensation. There were no impermeable barriers forcing water into hidden cavities. The wall itself functioned as structure, insulation, and environmental regulator. The pointed arch, central to Gothic design, was an engineering solution rather than ornament. Compared to a semicircular arch, a pointed arch directs more force downward and less outward, reducing lateral thrust on supporting walls. Ribbed vaults extended this principle overhead. Stone ribs formed a skeletal framework that carried concentrated loads down into columns and piers, while lighter infill stone filled the spaces between. This reduced overall weight while maintaining compressive continuity. Every force had a visible path from roof to ground. Flying buttresses extended that path externally. By transferring lateral thrust from high vaults across open air to massive outer piers, builders could reduce wall thickness and introduce large stained glass windows without compromising stability. It was structural optimization achieved purely through geometry and mass. No hidden steel. No tension cables. Gravity was guided, not resisted. Material compatibility was equally important. Stone, lime mortar, and timber expand and contract at relatively similar rates under changes in temperature and humidity. Over centuries, this compatibility prevents internal stress accumulation. Modern reinforced concrete binds steel and cement together, materials that behave differently over long periods, particularly when moisture intrudes. As steel corrodes, it expands, creating internal forces the brittle concrete cannot absorb. Medieval builders avoided such internal contradictions. Their materials aged together. Weather eroded exposed surfaces gradually, but the load-bearing core remained intact because its components moved in harmony. Durability emerged from redundancy and repairability. Cathedral structures are not single-point systems. Loads distribute across multiple arches, ribs, and buttresses. If one stone cracks, neighboring stones share the burden. Replacement is possible block by block. Lime mortar joints can be repointed centuries later using similar materials. Timber roof members can be removed and replaced without dismantling masonry walls. Maintenance was expected and integrated into the design logic. Moisture was anticipated rather than feared. Masonry walls can absorb rain and dry out over time. There are no sealed cavities trapping water against vulnerable steel. Thermal fluctuations are dampened by mass, reducing expansion cycles that fatigue modern lightweight assemblies. The building regulates itself passively. It does not rely on hidden systems running continuously in the background. Real-world examples demonstrate that this was not theoretical optimism. Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, begun in 1163, endured revolutions, industrial pollution, and a catastrophic fire in 2019. The timber roof was lost, but the ribbed stone vaults and primary load paths largely held. More than 850 years after construction began, the compressive skeleton remains viable. Chartres Cathedral, rebuilt after a fire in 1194 and largely completed by 1220, retains its original flying buttresses and most of its medieval stained glass. Salisbury Cathedral in England, constructed between 1220 and 1258, stands on relatively shallow foundations and waterlogged soil. Its wide footprint distributes weight evenly, allowing gradual, uniform settlement without structural collapse. Cologne Cathedral, begun in 1248, withstood centuries of exposure, including industrial-era pollution, yet its medieval structural core persists. These buildings require maintenance, but not reinvention. Their engineering logic still functions. The abandonment of this approach was not the result of lost knowledge. It was a consequence of industrialization and economic transformation. The Industrial Revolution introduced iron and steel framing, allowing taller and thinner structures. Portland cement enabled concrete to set rapidly, accelerating construction timelines. Urban populations expanded quickly, and housing shortages demanded speed. Buildings became financial instruments tied to capital cycles rather than multi-generational commitments. Standardization reduced costs and made mass construction feasible. Mechanical heating and cooling reduced reliance on thermal mass. Why build meter-thick stone walls if a furnace and air conditioner can regulate temperature? Why wait decades for stone masonry when reinforced concrete can be poured in days? Profit incentives favored faster turnover and lower initial cost, even if long-term durability decreased. Craft guild systems fragmented into specialized trades and engineering disciplines, dispersing holistic knowledge of material interaction. The lesson embedded in medieval cathedrals is not that cities should return to stone vaults and flying buttresses. It is that durability begins with intention. Design for the strengths of materials rather than against them. Favor compatibility so components age together rather than in conflict. Build redundancy so failure is gradual, not catastrophic. Allow moisture and temperature to move through a structure in predictable ways, instead of trapping them behind impermeable barriers. Modern technology offers extraordinary capabilities, but when buildings depend entirely on mechanical systems and chemical protections to survive, they become fragile. The cathedrals of the 1200s demonstrate that permanence can be achieved through geometry, mass, and respect for physics. We often call these structures monuments to faith. They are also monuments to disciplined engineering. Their builders faced constraints we would consider severe, yet they solved a problem we continue to struggle with: how to create buildings that do not require constant rescue from their own design. 8 centuries later, their arches still channel gravity safely into the earth. The stone still carries compression as it was meant to. The quiet question they pose is not whether we can replicate their methods exactly, but whether we are willing to think beyond the next quarter, the next contract, the next 50 years. Permanence is less about technological sophistication than about time horizon. The cathedrals still standing from the 1200s are evidence of what happens when structures are built not just to stand up, but to stand through time.